and the people who just joined. We're now going to listen to a talk called Climate Change versus Global Warming. So it's very on topic for this century. A corpus-driven approach to climate talk of the decade 2010 to 2019 by Locky Law. Please go ahead, share your screen, or simply talk.
Thank you. Right, can everybody see my screen? Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Loud enough? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So, thank you for staying until the very last presentation. I am Locky from Center for Applied English Studies in the University of Hong Kong. And my topic today, it's called Climate Change versus Global Warming and a corpus-driven approach to climate talk of the decade in 2010 to 2019. So to begin with, I must say, I am not a lexicographer. I am more like a linguist or applied linguist. I, specializes in other things, like television drama, corpus, and EAP, so English for academic purposes. But what I really do like a lot is, our Mother Nature. So I think, I hope that my talk today will be somewhat inspiring, and I will be throwing you some questions for you guys, lexicographers, because I don't know how to answer them. So I'm going to rely on you guys. Let's begin. So my presentation structure is very routine. It's just an introduction. I want to talk about the Halliday's view on reality, and then I'm going to look at focusing on Halliday's 1990 paper, and I'm going to do a review of his observation, followed by the methodology, which is the corpus-driven research that I did, then some findings and discussions, followed by conclusions and implications, and then Q&A. Okay, thank you. Right, so let's start with the introduction. Halliday, or M.A.K. Halliday, Michael Halliday, it's the founding father of the systemic functional linguistics. So kind of like my grand teacher, basically. His view on reality is very interesting. So he says that our reality is not something that's ready-made and is waiting to be meant. Okay? It has to be actively construed. Second point, language has the power to shape our consciousness. And I think everybody will agree with this point. Finally, his last point is that applied linguists are creating an active force which will play its part in shaping people's consciousness and influencing direction of social change. So all these points that he's trying to tell us is that we have the power to teach people, we have the power to change the world, and we have to know that we have these powers so that everything that we do will be worthwhile. Right. Okay. I might not be able to follow the chat box very closely, so okay, so I'll try to slow down. Sorry, I tend to speak pretty fast. All right, so we're moving to the second part, which is the review of Halliday's paper, 1990 paper, and his observations. Well, actually in that paper, he has a lot of very inspiring points, but not all of them are related to so-called ecolinguistics or our environment. So I selected those that are more relevant. First point that he really observed is the fact that there are something wrong with our grammar, and our grammar of limitless resources. So if you look at his quote there, he said that our grammar construes air and water and soil, and also coal and iron and oil as unbounded, that is, existing without limits. And you can see that problem, right? Because there are uncountables. But the grammar presents them as if only source of restriction was the way that we ourselves quantify them. For example, like a barrel of oil, a seam of coal, a reservoir of water, and so on, as if they in themselves were inexhaustible. Here's one example from Dr. Jane Goodall. So at the conference, France 20, so she said this: "It's crazy to think that we can have unlimited economic development on a planet with finite natural resources and a still growing human population. Something has got to give." Now, I'm throwing you the first message here. So is it some kind of food for thought for our lexicographers here? Okay. Second point from Halliday is that growth is not necessarily good. And his quote again, so when we read output fell sharply, it is obvious that all our negative loadings from the childhood came into play, like falling is painful, sharp things are dangerous, and it all should be avoided. Now, some people have tried to maintain that positive value of growth, but reconstruct it in expressions like zero population growth and negative growth. But the fact that is zero and negative sabotage the effort. Now, how can anything that is zero or negative be desirable goal? Right? That's another question from Halliday. So hopefully also something for lexicographers to think about. The third point is prejudice via choice. Okay, it specifically talks about the self-destruction by divisions. So again, Halliday's quote, both growthism and classism were positive and constructive for a certain moment in our history. Both have now become negative. The means of self-destructions by divisions among ourselves and by division between ourselves and the rest of creation. It is the choice of options within the system, bracket, taking up different probabilities that divides us among ourselves. For example, here, if you look at the box in the green, again by Dr. Jane Goddard, the lady we saw previously, when I first got to Cambridge, I had not been to college. I had been with the chimpanzees 2 years, and I was told that I'd done everything wrong. I shouldn't have given chimpanzees names. I shouldn't have given them numbers that were scientific. I couldn't talk about their personalities, their minds, or emotions, because those were unique to us, and that was her words in the video on the left. Okay, so everybody can see what's wrong with our grammar, what's wrong with our language, and how we use language to prejudice things, and how we use grammar in our language to mean things that are actually not limitless. So if you look at the caption on the left, above that, the chimpanzees, we are not the only beings on the planet with personalities, minds, and above all, emotions. And I think everybody will agree with this point here. But the thing is, these are, these semantics are from these words that we use, and we manipulate these possibilities, probabilities of these words to get what we want. So that's something really worth thinking about for either educators, teachers, researchers, or lexicographers. Another observation that he made is the psychological inertia. That I think very popularly known as the boiling frog. So he quote again Halliday's quote: "Human beings are good at recognizing and responding to sudden catastrophic changes, but bad at recognizing and admitting to ourselves that what he calls slow notion crisis formed by gradual trends and shifts of probability. So even a massive change, provided it takes place slow enough, will simply pass us by." And what does this actually mean to us? That we are slow acting to catastrophes. Now, if you look at the bottom right corner, that's a little screenshot from CNN News, and that girl, right? Galata from Bay, and she's been very famous these few years. She's striving to save our planet. But before she came along, there is this example, and there's a little gentleman here next to psychological inertia. Try to remember him and his face. So this person is the GOP strategist called Frank Luntz. Okay, at that time, in 2002, he sent a memo to the Republican candidates, meaning President George W. Bush, and then what he found in his focus group is that, if you look at the second paragraph, he discovered that climate change sounds less frightening than global warming. So in that memo that he explains, while global warming has catastrophic connotations attached to it, climate change suggests a more controllable and less emotional challenge. So it was this memo, from this memo onward, by that time, President George W. Bush changed his tone from global warming to climate change. All right, and this little paragraph is taken from that particular CNN News. So the last line here is that Luntz did not respond to a request for an interview following this. So Well, whether that's good or not, we'll have a look at it through the corpus-based, corpus-driven approach. But before that, let's look at some research questions. Because I want to establish a baseline for this so-called climate talk or climate language, right? So I have actually, it shouldn't be 2 research questions, it should be 3 research questions. I added the last one just for this talk. So the first question is, what language has the media been using when discussing climate-related topics in the last 10 years? Number 2, how can applied linguists and scientists approach the climate talk in 2020s? Okay. Finally, I added this question for this talk. What role should lexicographers play in defining terms in climate talk? So that's the question I would like you to help me with. Right, let's look at the methodology. So in my little corpus-driven research, I built my own eco-corpus, I call it. So the period of time is 2010 to 2019. I chose 250 texts, 25 per year, randomly chosen from Google. And then, so after I collected them, I realized that they came from a number of genres. So TV talks, talk shows, media reports, public speeches, online magazines, and the total word would be about 227,000 words. As you can see, these are the some of the sources. Okay, New York Times, Votes, and then IF King Love Science, for example. I love that name. Okay, and then some of the top shows as well. As for the method, I focus on concgrams and concordances. Now, first thing I do is I search the 1, 2, and 4 word concgrams and their concordances using this ConcGram core software, which is a software developed by Greaves and also by a team at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So our Professor Li Nan here was from there that time. And then also Wordsmith Tools. I think most of you are very familiar with this one, okay, by Mike Scott. After that, I compare the frequencies, the ratios, and percentages of the normalized words. All right, so very quickly, we come to our findings. So I have several tables here. This first one is the first 40 meaningful lemmatized words in the corpus. So if you take a look at it, I have tried my very best to color them according to their cause. At the bottom, if you look at it, cause will be in purple, effect will be in yellow, green will be natural resources and phenomena. So if you look at the entire 40 meaningful lemmatized words, you can practically or basically see what the kind of vocabulary have been used in climate talk for the last 10 years. Of course, within the limitation of my corpus. If you just look at the color, that's not a lot of yellow. There's not a lot of purple, but definitely not a lot of natural resources that is green, right? Most of the things are about people, risk, places, countries. And if we look at unique words this time without lemmatizing, maybe you can see a better picture now that there are more green, if you might think. There seems to be a lot more about phenomenons, something about a little bit about pollutions. But if we want to look at the whole picture, I forgot to mention one thing is, if you look at the top, whether it's table 1 or table 2, you can see that climate change and global warming are right way at the top right there. And then climate change would be a few times more frequent than global warming. If we look at or check with the Google Book Ngram viewer, you can see that that is really true. So the climate change has been way more popular, say after 1990, right? So and then global warming is still like a few times less at the bottom. So does that have anything to do with the memo by Luntz? I don't know, but I think we can more or less make our own predictions. Now, the table 3 here is the first 40 meaningful 2-word congrams. So we're now combining words and looking them in pairs and their permutations. As you can see here, first 2, again, climate change, global warming. Okay, fine. So climate change is way more popular than global warming. But the other thing that we also want to look at is now when we look at congrams or 2-word congrams, we can now see a lot more purple, which is talking about the cause. We can see a lot more of the effect. Okay, and what about natural resources phenomenon like renewable energy? Not a lot. Now, if you think about it, if all these words are ranked, obviously they're not the top 40, they are the top 40 meaningful ones. So there are a lot of prepositions that I've taken out, right? Articles a and der I've taken out. But if you look at this, which are the meaningful words, how are we dealing with the climate talk in our last 10 years? What are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the effect? Yes. Are we focusing on the cause? Yes. How much do we care about our natural environment? Well, not a lot, right? So want to make sure that that's the case. So we look at the 3-word and 4-word congram, but then I skip the 3-word congram because that's not telling too much more than this 4-word congram. If just by looking at the colors, you can see that a lot of effects, right? We focus on the effects of it. We focus on the causes of it. What about the world? Don't know, right? Not much. This is one green here. Now, I'm not saying that I am absolutely correct with my color annotations, but if I'm not, please let me know, right? Still, can't go too wrong with this one. And if we group all those congrams together, we can basically see that macro picture of it. What are the words that we use to associate with the cause of pollutions? Global emissions, greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide. Okay, we are familiar with that. Time, well, last year, years ago, right now, effects of pollutions, climate change, acts on climate change, climate science, climate impacts, Paris agreements, and then in systemic functional grammar, there's one term called tenor. Basically means the items or the people that are related or relevant to it. So United States, New York, United Nations, this, Donald Trump, things like that. Now I put the 3 questions on top again so that you can remind myself, or we can remind ourselves what we have answered. So have we answered question 1? What language has the media been using when discussing climate-related topics in the last 10 years? We can see from this diagram or chart here. 2, how can applied linguists and scientists approach the climate talk? Well, I think that will come later. But again, question 3, what role should lexicographers play in terms of climate talk or defining words? Now, Table 6 is climate change related terms from the Guardian's style guide. So in the Guardians, they have they have their editorial departments, and then so in 2019 they decided to change the use of words. Okay, so the column on the left is before that change. The column on the right are the words that they now use after that change. So climate change, they prefer to call it climate emergency, climate crisis, climate breakdown, global warming, global heating, biodiversity changes to wildlife, fish stocks change to fish populations, and climate skeptics change to climate change deniers. Right, so more things to think about for lexicographers. So when you guys are creating your dictionary, what do you do with these? I mean, if they're put together, when you give examples, definitions, how different should these words be? Do you agree with the change? So a lot of questions I personally cannot answer. I need your help with that. So this is that particular article talking about why Guardians is changing the language. So I've selected some quotes in here. In the gray box here. The Guardian has updated its style guide to introduce terms that more accurately describe the environmental crisis facing the world. So instead of climate change, they prefer terms like global heating is preferred over global warming. Climate crisis, we face a direct existential threat, and that's why they prefer words that are of a stronger tone. And they also provide people who use it, like climate scientists, the former advisor, Angela Merkel, for example. Now, this is a person on the top left here. We see him again. That's Lunsray. Remember that memo he wrote in 2002. Now, what has happened here? In 2019, he suggested that the climate change related words should be changed. Okay, so he said before that global warming wasn't good, so he should change to climate change now. What's he suggesting this time? Now he decided now that on the left column, these are the words that we should lose it. We should not use it anymore. The words on the right are the words that we should use now. Okay, let's take a look. So sustainability, sustainable changes to cleaner, safer, healthier. Ending global warming, change to solving climate change. Values, change to principles, priorities. Groundbreaking, state-of-the-art, change to reliable technology, energy. New jobs, change to new career. Security should be changed to peace of mind. Threats and problems should be changed to consequences. One world, change to working together. And that's his list right here. What does that mean? If you can read this tweet here that he wrote. yes, I have changed my opinion on climate change. Great. So he finally realizes that he should change the damages that he has done since authorizing a skeptical memo 18 years ago. Right. So that's that. But I'm leaving these to you to decide whether that's good or not. So conclusions or implications for us, either teachers, applied linguists, or lexicographers. So from these changes, right, the Guardian's style guide to the words that are being used by either like Greta Thunberg, this girl here, I want you to act as if the house was on fire. Obviously, she's trying to promote this sense of emergency. Our very respected Sir David Attenborough, should television show us more upsetting wildlife loss? He said yes, because things are going to get worse, from his tweet in there. If you want to go, you can go and Google this. Also AOC, very strong rhetoric, right? People are dying, science should not be partisan. So it's trying to tell you, get out of all these, interpersonal arguments and, put science in front. So very strong wording. Greta Thunberg here, another tweet, 2019, May 5th. It's 2019. Can we all now please stop saying climate change and instead call it what it is, climate breakdown, climate crisis? As you can see, these words are very close to what the Guardian style guide is. Actually, the style guide also followed some of her suggestions to make those changes. Right, so that's one way. But then psychologists are calling another way. You can see here, this psychologist, have I put his name down? Okay, I forgot to put his name down. But here, this is the tweet, and you can watch this video. Like you can see, you can barely see what is written in his caption in this particular video here. Because when I feel fearful or guiltful, I will withdraw from the issue. And that's the key message here. On the right-hand side, you can see that's his quote. Some of the quotes in the video. This doom and gloom messaging just isn't working. We seem to want to tune it out. And this fear and guilt that we know from psychology is not conducive to engagement. It makes people passive. I'll withdraw from the issue and try to think about something else that makes me feel better. That it can't just be a guilt trip about dying polar bears and driving around gas guzzlers. We need to talk about our wins. So two approaches, right? A bunch of vocabs, different people suggesting different methods. So I think I can conclude that we can, put a tick in question 1 and put a tick in research question 2. How can applied linguists and scientists approach this climate talk in the 2020s? Personally, I think we should, mix them up. We should have, sometimes we should be putting things in an emergency situation. We usually use stronger words, but the other times we have to talk about what's the benefits. So people don't like to be punished. People like to be awarded with things, right? They want you to make changes, so you're going to reward me. Otherwise, there's no motivation. So I think a combination of both will be easy, but that's for applied linguists or scientists or educators to do. What about lexicographers? What role should you guys play in defining terms in climate talk, and specifically, or most importantly, in your languages? Because what we have discussed are English words, right? Okay, so I've come to the final part. This is my selected references, and on the right, that's actually this presentation is part of the paper I've been working with Professor Christian Matthiessen, and it's called Revisiting Halliday. If you are interested, we're still still working on it, so I haven't finalized anything yet. But if you would like to have an update, you can, try to find us in ResearchGate. So we do share our papers on ResearchGate. So thank you very much, and time for the Q&A. Great. Okay, that's it. So let me stop the sharing. Whew. All right, good. I still have 6 minutes. Lovely. Thank you, Professor Leland. Hi. Long time no see. All right. Any questions, guys? Anything? I mean, definitely not questions about lexicography.
Locky Law, let me take over as the chair here now.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. The interpreter had a hard time translating everything immediately. You continue to speak a bit too fast, but it was a great presentation. It shows us that lexicography and terminography are never free of problems. I see already several hands. I have not seen the order of them, so let me just pick one. Pri, can you start by commenting or asking your question?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. And if I understand your presentation correctly, you are using normalized frequency, right?
Using a bit of everything actually. There's normalized frequency, there's
Yeah.
lemmatized, yeah, all kinds.
Why do you use normalized frequency? Are you comparing your corpus data with another corpus data?
Sorry,
Because I don't see that in this presentation.
Yeah. So in this presentation, I've selected those that are like relevant to ecolinguistics or lexicography. So there's a lot of things I haven't shown, but I'm not actually comparing like corpus, but I might, right? So when you're doing research, you don't know for sure what you're going to do. So if you know, because I use Excel and it's pretty easy to do all those calculations, I just do it anyway. I was waiting for the moment to see if I need to compare with anything. For now, for this presentation, I don't think I need to use that, but we never know. So haven't gone to that part yet. It's still working on the project or the paper. Yeah. So hopefully that's not too disappointing an answer.
No. But yeah, that was the interesting part when you compare your corpus data with another data, because the size between your corpus and another corpus is not always balanced. So using normalized frequency is a good way. And I saw that you use the data from Guardian, or you just mentioned the data from Guardian. They changed the style.
From the Guardian?
You use the data from the Guardian. That they change. They have rules to change the terminologies they used. So it might be interesting to compare the same terminologies used on Guardian on different time span, or maybe comparing data used by Guardian and maybe to data used, I don't know, by newspaper in Hong Kong, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Google Ngram that basically showed that climate change has been way more popular. So yeah, I agree. So we would like to see. It would be interesting to see what happens after the Guardian has pushed their changes to see whether the normalized percentages of climate change or not climate emergency, climate crisis, or how they are compared. From like now, I don't have the specific percentages for that, but from my research or from going through the corpus, I can see that actually it is going pretty slow. So other than the Guardian, there's one more one more news media in France. They are adopting similar one, and there's one more. And so far, only 3 of these news medias have voiced out that they will follow. Which is why I don't think, obviously without the exact data, but I don't think that change is really affecting too many news medias in terms of their styles of vocab use. Which I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, because you saw that Greta Bay, AOC, Sir David Attenborough, they want the tone to be stronger, but at the same time, the psychologists are saying, no, we shouldn't do that. So that's the turning point, right? We don't know if it should be more. And even if we found that now more people are using climate emergencies, climate crisis, how's that going to affect people who are reading it? So I don't know. It's something you can think about.
Okay, Locky, given the time, I want to give the floor to perhaps 2 more people with questions or comments.
Sure.
Snezana?
I have a lot of time after this.
Yeah, hello, thank you for the presentation. My question is also going to be about corpus. Firstly, do you plan to enlarge it in the future? And I was also wondering about like the technical aspect. You said that you have chosen randomly the articles from certain years. Did you do it with some kind of a tool, or how did you do it?
Well, basically, I just go through Google News, right? There's a news tab, so I click that tab, and then I scan through all the things that are ranked by the time. So that's also, obviously you can choose the time, so that helps a bit in limiting the choices there. So going by year, and then just scan through whether that's talking about climate or what. But that's the thing, because I can't type climate change to the search box, because that will skew the data, right? I can't type global warming and search and then pick those, and that will also skew the data. So I have to just go there by the year and then scroll. So
you went through manually through
yes, manually, and I thought that would be the fairest, so-called, right? Somewhat fairer than me typing global warming or climate change to search. Otherwise, that won't work. So yeah, in terms of expanding it, maybe not now, because I'm planning to use this one to write some articles. So maybe, I don't know.
Okay, Locky, the work of a chair is horrible.
Sure.
I cut you off. I hear my church bells are ringing here in Belgium, so it must be 11 this side. Vita, do you have a very brief question? Because we will need to move to the other session.
Oh, we still have another section?
I thought so.
Really?
Yes, we do. Vita, are you still there? I may be mispronouncing your name.
Iya, terima kasih.
Yes.
Presentasi yang menarik dari Bapak Locky Law. Saya mau bertanya, ada 2 pertanyaan. Pertama, sebenarnya sudah ditanyakan oleh Danika, tapi saya mau mendapatkan penjelasan ulang tentang bagaimana pemilihan data untuk mengetahui persepsi publik tentang suatu isu melalui korpus. Apakah sebaiknya kita mempertimbangkan pengambilan data dari media kritis yang spesifik membahas suatu hal atau cenderung ke media umum. Lalu pertanyaan kedua, misalnya persepsi publik sekarang sudah keliru karena kita sudah terlanjur menggunakan istilah climate change daripada climate crisis. Nah, bagaimana cara mengubah persepsi masyarakat agar bisa diarahkan untuk kebutuhan yang mendesak? Misalnya kasusnya kata climate crisis itu sangat diperlukan agar masyarakat bisa
Vita, can I stop you here? Do we have a translator? Because for many of us, we are not following. The interpreter, can you help us out here a bit?
Yes, but you have to choose the language that you want in the Zoom. Yes. Can someone help?
I'm not sure.
I can help a little bit with the translation, I think.
Please.
If that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if I understand Vita correctly,
you have to choose the language you want to hear.
Ya, sudah. English.
I'm afraid Mr. Locky doesn't do that.
I've just changed it to English, so sorry.
Okay.
Ya, saya ulangi.
Okay.
Kasusnya seperti.
So the case is just like what happened in Indonesia. The word women